The Warhammer 40k commander decks have brought us into a new era of Magic the Gathering. Well, what is up, everyone? Welcome back to Kitchen Table TCG. My name is Louie. I hope you're having yourself a fantastic day. Today I was thinking through the Warhammer 40k commander decks, and I was just astonished at how successful these have been and how excited people are to get those in hand. Just so you know, a little behind the scenes information, distribution is expecting a small restock this week, so make sure you reach out to your LGS and ask them to ask their distributor for more of these boxes. I'm sure they will be doing that anyway. But see if you can get yourself in on Monday here to ask your store owner, hey, can you set me aside one of these decks, blah, 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 because this week we should see a small restock of those. Anyway, back to the conversation. I was having a conversation and thought this week about the Warhammer 40k decks being the first real product. I know we've seen some Secret Layer stuff and some crossover things, but the first real product of the universes beyond Magic the Gathering thing. And it made me kind of think and question this: are we moving into a new era of Magic the Gathering? Right now I would say we are in the flashy era of Magic the Gathering. And are we moving into what I'm gonna call the crossover era of Magic the Gathering? I know, thank you. It was really creative. I know nobody else could have thought of that idea, but the crossover era of Magic the Gathering. As you know, Magic the Gathering is 30 years old. So you take this 30-year-old timeline and all of a sudden you have a lot of time, a long length. I would say the flashy era of Magic the Gathering has lasted about 3 years. Throne of Eldraine was about 3 years ago. So 1/10 of this timeline has been the flashy era. Another thing to note is that the average Magic the Gathering person who's involved in the hobby lasts about 3 years before exiting, and sometimes they come back and whatever, but some of the data that we've seen, specifically from the Alta Fox article, talked a lot about a 3-year timeline for Magic the Gathering players or people who are invested. So Wizards has a very interesting issue or problem to solve, is that they have to constantly be bringing new people into the hobby as a result of every 3 years kind of people phase in and out, and it's kind of this constant cycle back and forth. So Wizards' goal is to create new things for people to come and be invested in the hobby. Not investment like we think as people who invest in trading, but investment and like people interested in the hobby. So they mix things up. They don't just do the same thing for 10 years, 20 years. Every kind of rotation of time, they mix things up. And I think we are on the verge of moving away from the flashy era. Not that the flashy cards are gonna go away. I think they're probably here to stay. But the flashiness isn't gonna be the sales pitch. Right now you have the collector edition box that, has these special foils. I think the move here, the transition, is that becomes the norm, and that we just think of that as normal, which has already kind of happened. No one's super surprised that Unfinity had a collector box, right? Like, you're like, yeah, this is the first time an unset has had a collector box, but you're not like, oh my gosh, that's surprising. Kind of is something that you anticipated. But now what will surprise you is what is the next crossover. You think the Warhammer 40k decks are popular and exciting and have people on the edge of their seat waiting for restocks to happen. Imagine what's gonna happen with the Lord of the Rings. I'm telling you right now, the Lord of the Rings pre-orders for those commander decks, when they come out, the pre-orders are going to be through the roof. And as this game evolves and as more and more things come in and the crossovers continue and go and ebb and flow, you're going to see a lot of different demand and a lot of different excitement from people who are not involved in the game. Now, don't get me wrong, you're going to see people who are upset about this, and I think this is very fair. There's a difference between creating a flashy flashier version of Karn Liberated. Then there is putting in, some sort of Warhammer 40k character that really doesn't fit, or what did they put in the Megan Fox movie, Transformers. You might know from the TV show from when you were a kid. But I remember from the Megan Fox movie. You know, maybe you don't want to play against the Transformers, and I understand that, and I value that. And I think that honestly, there's going to be more people, more of an exodus at this point in Magic the Gathering's cycle than normal, because people just don't want to play with those cards. But the involvement, the people who are coming into the game as a result, I do think will grow. And I do think you're seeing, I've seen this at my local store, some people who were interested in Warhammer, asking about these Warhammer 40k decks, being very interested in, you know, they've seen their Magic players or the Magic people in the store, so now they can kind of interact with them. I think that's a perfect crossover, to be honest with you. And I think mostly Magic players who were vocal about it have kind of backed off a little bit. They've seen the decks play, they're creative, they're unique. They've kind of backed off a little bit. So it's gonna be interesting to see. But my real question is, what does this mean for you as a consumer? Somebody who maybe buys, sells, or collects Magic the Gathering. I think first off, for the players, I think this is gonna be a really good thing. Now, Wizards has a tendency to do the first product very well and then go downhill from there. But the Warhammer 40k decks were balanced together. They were a lot of fun to play in a vacuum. They were strong. From a player perspective, it was a very big win. So if they continue that, again, I know they don't usually do that, but if they continue to put the resources, their time, their energy, their strength into creating these products to be unique, fun experiences, I think it's going to be very good for the player base. I think as a player, you're going to have more unique ways to experience the game. I know a lot of people have talked about keeping the 40k decks in a vacuum and that being a really fun experience. And so I think if that continues, that'll be really good for you as a player, because they will put the time and energy and resources into that. As a collector, if you like the, you know, the universe that they are doing, if you like Warhammer, it'll be fun to collect them. Although I don't really like Warhammer, and I'm excited to collect the Warhammer decks. But you know, if you love Lord of the Rings, that's going to be really exciting for you. But if you hate Lord of the Rings, you're not really going to care about it. But that's kind of what this is, right? Some people really love antiquities cards. Some people really love from the vaults. You know, you kind of pick and choose the things that you collect, and Magic is a big enough ecosystem where you can pick and choose and not feel like you're missing out on the other side. So I think from a collector perspective, yeah, there's some wins here, and I think you will get excited about some of those things that are coming out, and that's a huge win. That's a win for everybody involved. It's a win for your store, it's a win for you, and it's a win for Wizards to have people excited about the product. So for some of these things, it will excite them. But for other people, that additional collector is going to remove them a little bit from the process. So there's a little bit of scarcity, or I'm a scaredy cat about that, to see collectors leaving the game as a result of not liking the IPs that they are bringing into the game. As an investor, I think that this long term is going to be very good. You have a lot of people, a lot of the old heads of Magic the Gathering who are upset about this. And the internet noise has been very loud compared to like people at my store. People in my store, not super upset about this. Not super upset about the Warhammer 40k or the crossovers. Typically people either don't care at all, or they're really excited about it. They're not angry. The old heads of Magic the Gathering, there's a few of them that are pretty upset about the idea of these IPs coming into Magic the Gathering. Excuse me. Which creates a new world where there's potential for people who are newer to the collecting and investing. And honestly, this is what Magic the Gathering needs more than anything else. That timeline. 30 years is a long time. There's starting to be a timeline there where the rotation of people involved in the hobby is just gonna happen. There's no other way to say it. People are getting older. They're getting less interested. They're reaching their exit point. They're reaching their retirement years. If you were 30 where Magic the Gathering started, you're now 60 years old. So you are ready to sell your collection and retire and move on from some of those things. Maybe not your whole collection, but you're ready to think through more of your older life. Now, you need things for the younger people to be excited about, to invest in and collect, and I think this is the perfect avenue. This new age of collecting, where you are collecting based on some of the IPs that, frankly, me, grew up with. Lord of the Rings was a very, very, very popular movie when I was in middle school. I remember playing the Lord of the Rings video games, like the GameCube games, like crazy. So that is exciting for me as a collector. I particularly don't really like Lord of the Rings, but as a collector, it's exciting that some of those things might be things that I witnessed when I was a child, when I was a kid. So I think it's an interesting dynamic as you start to see some of the older collectors and investors backing away from these products, because it allows the newer collector investors to hop in. So just a thought for you, I think we are really moving into this age. I really think that every single year you are going to see a major commander deck. I think eventually we will see full box sets that are, I think this is already happening with Lord of the Rings. But I think we will see standard sets eventually, not just supplemental sets. I think we will see really leaning into this dynamic of IPs being in Magic the Gathering. Now, I'm not saying I'm for that yet. Honestly, I don't know how I feel. I'm saying there are wins and losses to it. Anyway, would love to hear what you think. What do you think about this new age? 3 years in a 30-year cycle, not that much. When you look at it, the longevity of this game through all the cycles is pretty impressive. And it'll be interesting to see where we are moving forward. I hope you have yourself a fantastic day. Remember to be kind to the people around you, and we'll see you again next video.